Look at that.
Why and she's objectified Nigel Farage.
Can you imagine if that was the male presenter doing that to say, I don't know, Priti Patel or Angela Rayner?
They would be immediately sacked.
Loose women, right? A bunch of semi-naked men, all being sexually objectified.
Breaking today. Woke ITV has been called out for hypocrisy, specifically on loose women for objectifying men. Now, this is really fascinating, isn't it? Because you would assume the loose women are this bunch of feminists, and of course, in many ways they are. But why should there be a total different treatment on their shows in terms of how women are sexualized, how women are portrayed, and how men are? Because surely equality, true equality, means that both should be at an equal level. Well, Peter Lloyd, who tweets under the suffragette tag on X, has exposed what's going on, writing, male strippers on Good Morning Britain, male strippers on This Morning, man upskirted on Lorraine. All happened while kids were watching. None of the women involved were fired, but John Turode, referring to the axed MasterChef host, gets sacked for singing a Kanye West song in the pub. And of course, he copied in Alison Hammond, Lorraine Kelly, and Charlotte Hawkins, who I imagine were completely quiet about this. Now, Peter Lloyd with me today, of course. And Peter, I got my team actually to go and find egregious examples of this, and there were so many. Let's just run through some of them. And while we're doing this, I think it's really important to think, would this be allowed to happen to women in the same way? Just imagine if a daytime TV show on Woke ITV paraded women around in this manner, Peter Lloyd. So as we go through some of these examples on ITV, over to you. Big news. Outspoken is now available as a podcast too. So please do subscribe wherever you get yours, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you rate and review. I'll take 5 stars, if you may.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you've brought this up, because I've been banging this drum for a while now. I mean, here you can see the images that you've got on. Dan, that is male strippers at 7:30 in the morning when children were watching before they went to school. How is this allowed? This is absolutely brain frying. It's unbelievable. Male strippers on ITV, a commercial station, at 7:30 in the morning when children are watching. Here's male strippers on Loose Women. I also tweeted look at that.
And she's objectified Nigel Farage.
Can you imagine if that was the male presenter doing that to say, I don't know, Priti Patel or Angela Rayner?
They would be immediately sacked.
Loose women, right? A bunch of semi-naked men, all being sexually objectified. Once again, this isn't post-Watershed. This is going out at lunchtime during the Christmas holidays when children are at home. Here's a male stripper on This Morning. 10:30, 11 a.m. in the morning, broadcast to children. Absolutely sickening, and a total and utter double standard. I've been banging on about this for a long time, and the reason I started is because I obviously we both work in the media, and I was once sent to a recording of a show at ITV. Many years ago. It was Danny Minogue presenting a show about Boyzone, and I had to go in to try and report on it. And the warm-up act for the show came in, started giving this comedy routine to the audience, and then asked several men in the audience to stand up. He made them strip down to their underwear. He then made them remove their underwear so they were naked. And there were children in the live audience sat next to me. I was kind of pulling my hair out thinking, what on earth is going on here? It was disgusting. It was so inappropriate. I filed a complaint The next day to the head of ITV, nothing. I filed a complaint to the head of the HR department, nothing. I filed a complaint to the press office, nothing. And I've since been embroiled in a conversation with Carolyn McCall, who heads up ITV, and they have offered a lily-livered apology to me, but, you know, it's certainly not a public apology. They haven't offered to change their policy, and this is still ongoing. Only last week, Dan, they had the diver, Tom, what's his name?
Oh, Tom Daly.
Yeah, sorry. Daly. Yes. So they have the diver Tom Daly presenting the weather in a pair of Speedos.
Well, I mean, I think that also says something about his talents, doesn't it? As in, he has none. But see, my view on this, right, is that there should be, look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so what I would like to see is there been a very, very clear understanding with the loose women that, okay, because you are now doing this to men, you have to stop moaning about the so-called objectification of women. Do you see what I mean? For me, this is a case of double standards. Like, when I used to be the executive editor of The Sun, I would always be clear that we were equal opportunity objectifiers. And would do so quite proudly, right? Because do you remember everyone would complain about The Sun, oh, you have page 3, or, you know, you put Rihanna on the front page in her underwear, Beyonce. I'll be, hang on a moment. The moment Cristiano Ronaldo or David Beckham were doing, you know, one of their underwear ads, it was on the front page of The Sun. So we're equal opportunity objectifiers. I have no problem with that. But what I have a problem with is the fact that ITV constantly go on about the fact that women are being objectified, constantly go on about the fact that women are treated differently in society, when they are the ones that are perpetuating the completely unbalanced treatment.
Right, absolutely. And I agree with you. I am also an equal opportunist when it comes to objectification. You know, we're all sexual creatures. It's absolutely fine to admire physical beauty in men or women. All I ask is that the rules are consistent. So if you want to have male strippers on Good Morning Britain, which I think is probably wrong because of the timing of it, fine, but also have female strippers on. You know, treat the genders equally.
Which would never happen. It would never, ever happen. I mean, this Tom Daly thing is just extraordinary. It would never happen.
It's absolutely astonishing, and it's one of the last great hypocrisies that's happening in the media. And the reason it is allowed to happen is because, like a lot of other institutions, they have been captured by feminists. And, you know, while equality of opportunity is, of course, sacrosanct and it's the basis of a civilized country, feminism is not about equality. It's never really been about equality. It's essentially trade unionism for women. It's Marxist in its roots. It's never been interested in equality. It's only ever wanted female advantage. And it deliberately objectifies men because they think it reduces them and empowers women over them. It's a political act. So when you see strippers on ITV, it's not just for a bit of fun. Part of it is also political.
100%. Well, look at Loose Women. Look at the change on Loose Women. And I had Carol McGiffin on the show recently. She's brilliant. You know, she was one of the original Loose Women, and she would used to have very honest conversations. They would be quite wild, right, on Loose Women back in the day. But now she says that show has gone so woke. She couldn't even be on it because of the way that they presented the world. It was just too depressing for her. Because what they do on that show now, Peter, is make it clear that in their worldview, every single issue is the fault of men. They are allowed on that show to treat men, right, as a homogenous group that is able to be slagged off in a way that no other group in society would be able to be blamed for every ill. You know, no sexual identity, no racial group. But when it comes to men, that show is allowed to go on air every single day and make jokes and laugh about the fact, but also be very, very serious that all of the problems in the world, Peter, are down to men. It happens every day. It's absolutely disgusting. It didn't used to happen. By the way, actually, Loose Women used to be a show, I would argue, that that celebrated female empowerment, but also celebrated men. But something changed about 10 years ago when the show made a very conscious decision to go woke. But first, something really important to talk to you about. Scammers and spammers who are out there to ruin your life. We've all experienced more and more of those spam emails, text messages, and robo phone calls. Not only are they annoying and really time-consuming to deal with, but they usually represent a gross invasion of your private information that can cause vast reputational and financial damage. And I mean, how the heck did they get your information in the first place? Well, it's likely as a result of data brokers who know everything about you, your health information, relationship status, mortgage details, so much more actually, and then sell it for a profit. These data brokers can directly or indirectly expose sensitive information to bad actors, putting you at risk of identity theft. The number of data breaches worldwide rises every year. According to the annual data breach report by the Identity Theft Resource Center, it actually went up by 72% in 2023. This means that you and your loved ones are at a constantly increasing risk of data breaches as growing lists of data brokers hold your personal information. That has then been sold or published online without you even knowing about it. Let me tell you how shocking the consequences can be. Health insurance companies could actually raise your rates based on your online activity. Huge loans have been taken under people's names without them even knowing about it. And scammers have even started to use AI to, wait for it, mimic the voices of friends and family to trick victims into sending them money. These imposter scams rely entirely on the voice data they can find online. While you can ask these data brokers to delete your personal information, the process takes hundreds of hours to do manually and requires repetition. But the good news is that today I have a solution for you that I use and personally endorse. Go to incogni.com/outspoken and get 60% off an annual plan. Now, Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your personal data removal, and handles any objections from their side. The whole process is automated, ensuring that your data stays off the market by conducting repeated removals and taking your data down if it pops up again. That's what makes the yearly subscription especially advantageous. Now, I do the annual plan so that I'm constantly being taken off these lists. It truly is a simple process. Create an account, grant Incogni the right to work for you, and they will contact the data brokers on your behalf to request your personal data removal. It has helped me so much. You can go to incogni.com/outspoken and get 60% off. That's 60% off an annual plan right now. It could be the most important decision you make. But now, back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really sad to see. And what I find particularly disappointing is, back in the day, feminists would complain about the objectification of women. And part of their reasoning would be, young girls coming up the ranks shouldn't be forced to see this kind of thing because it's bad for their mental health. It's bad for their image. It can increase things like anorexia and the risk of mental health and physical health issues. And it's just not good for young girls to be seeing these things. And yet we're expecting young boys to be able to view male strippers and ripped bodies and to not have that affect their mental health and not expect that to lead them down a path of maybe testosterone and steroids in the gym because they're trying to achieve this impossible body standard. The double standard is staggering. Why is it okay to inflict this kind of subliminal messaging on boys? And what message is it giving them? It's essentially telling them, if you get groped in a pub by a boozy Hindu, then you've just got to suck it up. And that's just the way it is. And I say, I'm sorry, sexual assault is sexual assault.
But it's not treated that way
when women do it.
It's not treated that way, and it's certainly not treated that way when cancel culture comes into play. Interestingly, Peter, you have pointed out another example where a broadcaster is changing its policy, though. So this story was about the fact that woke Netflix bosses axed the iconic scene from Pride and Prejudice remake to avoid objectifying men. And you say, good. If it's wrong to objectify women, then it's wrong to objectify men. Hopefully this is just the start of it. The double standard has existed for far too long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I've got my fingers crossed here that this is going to be the start of something. I hope it's just nascent and that it's only going to grow from here. But I'm not so sure whether this is just a publicity stunt. Either way, I'm glad it's happening, because that moment where Colin Farrell emerges, from the water in his outfit, in that original adaptation, that BBC adaptation, that's really when I can trace it back to. It was around that time that the objectification of men began. And then it gathered momentum with things like The Full Monty. And since then, it's just got worse and worse. So I'm hoping now that maybe the tide is turning and that there's going to be some acknowledgement that this is inappropriate, because it's just getting worse and worse. And it's getting more vulgar. I'm sorry, I'm very pro-sex, I'm very pro-sexuality, I'm very pro-beauty, but I don't like the idea of children being presented with the image of male strippers at 8 o'clock in the morning. Call me unorthodox.
Well, you just absolutely know that if that happened with women, the loose women would be anywhere. The loose women would be the first on, saying this person should be cancelled. But look, Peter, you have always been someone that have taken these arguments to the mainstream media, sometimes with hilarious results. I've got a couple of your greatest hits. One, let's just turn back the clock, and this probably is the best ever. I have a lot of experience with this woman too. Watch.
Really have a right to be treated respectfully.
We are unfortunately running out of time, but Peter, I just want to get one final thought from you. Are there words that are used to describe men that offend you?
Not particularly, and if there are some I don't like, I certainly wouldn't want them banned. But it always goes back to that old adage: sticks and stones may break my bones, but there will always be something to offend a feminist.
Peter Lloyd.
No, that's just obnoxious.
Peter
Sorry,
Lloyd,
you have to give me a chance. That is ridiculous. No, hang on, I won't do your show again if you don't let me respond to that.
Oh, Kate Smurthwaite is her name. Oh my goodness, that was hilarious. And that was sort of before people were doing those types of debates.
Right. My friends always say to me, Peter, you were the original. You were doing this long before it was fashionable, long before it was trendy to be attacking woke. I wrote a book about, men's rights and critiquing feminism 10 years ago, before it was popular to really be doing this kind of thing. And I was so young then. I was like really putting myself out there. And I was, I kind of look back and think, wow, I was fearless.
My producer just said that is one of the greatest clips in TV history, which is quite a lot of acclaim.
She still won't talk to me, Dan. Honest to God,
No, me either. We had so many rows on GB News, because the thing is, on GB News you have to, because of the off comments. I mean, I don't have to have someone like Kate Smurthwaite on my show now, which is so refreshing. But on GB News, because of the off communists, you sort of have to do that faux balance. And so your more recent greatest hit was actually just on GB News, a very similar type and style of debate. Watch this.
I'm not even comparing women's football to men's football. I mean, that would be a humiliation for the Lionesses. Let's look at two really solid metrics to view how good women's football is. Profitability. Women's football it doesn't even break even, despite the fact it's rammed down our throats at every opportunity. In fact, men's football has to subsidize women's football because it can't bring in the cash. If it was so good, it would be able to stand on its own 2 feet. And secondly, if you judge it by performance, the football that we've seen in this UEFA tournament has been atrocious. The Swedish women's team, before this tournament started, they were defeated by a boys under 15 team, 7-1. And when the Lionesses went to penalties with the Swedish women's team, it was laughable. There were 14 penalties. 9 of them were missed. It was absolutely appalling football. I am sorry. I wish them all the best. I hope they have a great time. It would be nice if they win, but please stop this kind of Soviet-style propaganda, which tells us that we've got to believe women's football is good. It isn't. They make the beautiful game ugly.
Look at that. Look at Ornese's
Look at their faces.
Like, you don't actually need to hear from them, Peter. And look, I actually love women's sport, right? But the point that you're making there is that it's up to the market to decide. And what has driven me absolutely mad about the Lionesses is the false equivalence that the mainstream media feels they have to give, because it's woke eating themselves. So it's like ITV have to pretend like the country has stopped for this game, and it hasn't. And it's okay for things to be different, right? It's okay to acknowledge, okay, one sport is bigger than another sport, but there's a game of pretend that is going on in the mainstream media.
It's like a classic example of the emperor's new clothes. You know, the emperor is being paraded around, wearing this beautiful suit, when actually they're not wearing anything at all. And we're all supposed to believe this lie that women's football is fantastic and equal to, if not better than, the men's game. I'm sorry, that's just not true. And I'm not afraid to say that. Part of the reason why they want to do this is because of cultural envy. This is yet again feminist driven. They are so envious that men created football, that it became a huge cultural event, that it became a huge commercial success. They hate that. They hate the glory that male footballers get to enjoy. They can't stand men having anything. So that's why they have to say, right, well, we want our equivalent, and it has to be treated in the exact same way, and we have to be paid the same, otherwise you're all sexist. This isn't about football. This isn't about skill. You know, let's face it, the Lionesses are for the most part a bunch of mediocre lesbians. This is really about taking something away from men. It's about occupying male space, male cultural space. That's what this is about. It's not even about football. It's about politics.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.